Hey, good morning, all saints. I'm excited to worship with you this coming Sunday. The lectionary has us in the 14th chapter of Romans. There we see the purpose of the church and the way in which we as Christians who belong to a particular church are to live together. It's been a big question in the history of the churches. How do we organize ourselves? How, when other Christians have different opinions than us, different viewpoints than us? How do we live in both harmony and in truth? It is a perennial question, and it's one Paul addresses for us in Romans. That is not the subject of today's vlog, though. Instead, I want to talk to you about Alpha, which is coming up shortly. And so to help me talk about Alpha is Guy Delcom. Guy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great this morning.
Good.
Ready for
I am too. Um, Most people listening to this, I assume, if they go to All Saints, have heard at least of Alpha. But let's assume they've only heard the word Alpha. They think maybe it's the sounds like a junior sorority or something, and they're not sure what it is. What's the short pitch for what Alpha is?
Yeah, so Alpha is a time designed over a meal and drink to enjoy friendship, a safe environment, to explore some of life's biggest questions. Some of those questions have to do with what does it mean to be human? How do I make the most out of my life? Who is Jesus? How to pray? How does God guide us? And things like that. So the idea is not so much for it to be a time of teaching as much as it is exploration together, and inviting those who are maybe not part of the church, or who were part of a church before and not right now, inviting them to re-engage in a very safe and non-judgmental environment.
Yeah. So on Sunday, you did announcements and you held up this little invite to Alpha and you encouraged everybody to take one or two and think of someone in their life they could invite to Alpha and attend with them. Who is a good person you might invite to Alpha? I guess the answer could be obviously anyone and everyone, but are there particular people who are especially helpful to ask to attend an Alpha course?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is anyone is welcome to come to an alpha. Whether a person has been in church all their life, or they're not in church, or like I said just a minute ago, they haven't been in church in a while. But I think the primary person that an individual wants to think about inviting to alpha would be someone in their peer circle, someone perhaps like a colleague at work, or someone who lives next door in their neighborhood, on their cul-de-sac or whatnot. Someone who they want to develop a better friendship with, a better relationship with, and perhaps draw them in closer into a community if they're not in community already.
Yeah, totally. We have a new neighbor who have gotten to know just a little bit, and I'm planning on inviting him, letting him know he's happy to ride with me. We live a little distance from the church. He's happy to ride with me if he wants to. But I have to, between now and Alpha, I have to actually invite him. It can
Yeah.
be a little awkward, I guess, if you're inviting someone to something that's at all churchy. No one wants to come off as that guy who's constantly saying, hey, come to church with me, come to church with me. Do you have any good tips on how one can take one of these little invites? This one I have bent, so I'm going to throw that one away. I don't want to give anybody this bent alpha. That's a bad start. How can someone invite a friend, a coworker, a family member to alpha?
Yeah, I think it's really easy. The beauty of those little cards, the invite cards, which we still have quite a few at the church. So when you come this weekend, you should grab at least one or two. The easiest thing is just to invite them in a very similar way that you plan to invite your new neighbor. Invite them to come along with you to Alpha, and you may even say, hey, why don't you just try it out? It's an 8-week run this year, right? So it goes from September 27th to November 15th. You may just say, hey, why don't we go a couple of times? There's a great meal. It's at a brewery, so it's not at a church. There'll be great drinks. And you'll get to meet quite a few other people who are all exploring and open to exploring some pretty big questions in life. So those little if you don't have one of those little cards, you can easily just make a personal invite and just tell them, hey, come with me. I'd be happy to pick you up. We can ride together, so it's not intimidating at all. And let's try it out for a couple of weeks, and we just see what the Lord does after that.
Excellent. Well, Guy, thank you for sharing a bit more about Alpha. If you have questions about our Alpha program, you can reach out to either Guy or myself. We would love to tell you more, and we would love to see you this Sunday. This passage, Romans 14, is one of the most practical in all of Scripture. It affects our daily life tremendously, and so I'm excited to unpack that chapter more with you, to pray, to worship, and to most importantly, just to see all of you in person on Sunday. Go in peace.